try to summarize a little bit what, and this is just my interpretation of physical abuse. Punching, slapping, shoving aggressively, kicking, trapping physically, because this happens to women a lot, getting kind of shoved up against a wall and sort of trapped there, twisting your arm painfully, throwing objects at you aggressively, biting, pulling your hair painfully, a pattern of refusing to allow you to sleep. I have heard of this happening in some marriages that I know about. Regularly requiring you to work until you're past the point of exhaustion and physically sick, tying you up against your will, forcing you to perform sex acts against your will, forcing himself on you sexually against your will, or forcing you to use alcohol or drugs, or denying you medical care. And I know that sounds very heavy, and yet I know women personally that have had this happen. Leslie Vernick of the Association of Biblical Counselors, I like to read a lot of stuff by the Association of Biblical Counselors because, well, they're biblical counselors, they don't stray too far from the Bible. They really try to stay very centered. And so I really appreciated what she said. And so let me read what she wrote about emotional and verbal abuse. Emotionally abusive behaviors and attitudes aren't always easily recognized, especially if one's family of origin did the same thing. These things include raging, criticizing, ridiculing, demeaning, and belittling, withholding things like withholding money, withholding sex, withholding any verbal communication at all, restricting your freedom of movement or freedom of choice, or even your freedom of expressing yourself, isolating you, trying to isolate you from family or friends, threatening to harm themselves or harm others. Maybe like harm your child, like just kind of threatening to harm your child. Abandonment, coercing, accusing, and ordering. Ignoring someone over time basically conveys the message you don't exist. And if you think about it, I mean, if your husband just basically ignored you, you're talking and he just pretends you're not there, and this goes on day after day after day, that does something to you inside. Regularly minimizing someone's feelings, thoughts, desires, or needs, as well as other subtle nonverbal cues of disgust, disapproval, or disdain, diminish the personhood of the other. In addition, she says, repeatedly denying someone else's reality, like that did not happen, or you took that the wrong way, or I didn't do that, or you're crazy. See how that all works? Again, this is completely emotional abuse. So again, I try to summarize this, and it's on your sheet, about behaviors that I would consider emotional or verbal abuse. Calling obscene names, yelling in rage, a pattern of constantly criticizing you and putting you down, prolonged periods of refusing to talk to you at all, a pattern of ridiculing or making fun of you, a pattern of mocking you or mean-spirited sarcasm, verbal threats of violence, intimidation through displaying knives. I know someone that did this in their marriage. I mean, talk about intimidation, just displaying knives whenever the argument heats up. Well, it's like they haven't done anything, but constantly accusing you of wrongdoing, forbidding you to talk to your parents or maybe your brothers or sisters, preventing you from leaving the house, refusing you to allow you to talk on the phone, forbidding you from speaking to friends or neighbors. Those would all be things that we would call emotional or verbal abuse.